The Johnson family's annual reunion took place, as always, at Golden Fork's flagship restaurant in downtown Chicago. A tradition that had been going strong for 7 years. Nearly 300 relatives filled the upstairs private dining hall, surrounded by gleaming crystal chandeliers and polished mahogany walls, the very image of Golden Fork Enterprises' Midwestern success story. I sat quietly at table 12, absent-mindedly pushing salmon around my plate, when my father launched into his usual critique of my life decisions. Dessert had just been served, Golden Fork's famed chocolate soufflé, and with 3 glasses of wine behind him, Dad was ready to hold court. "You know what I love about these reunions?" he boomed to our table of 8. "Seeing how much the family business has thrived. Look around. This is what success really looks like." My cousin Derek, head of Golden Fork's marketing, raised his glass in tribute to Grandpa Joe. 23 restaurants across 4 states, and we're only getting started. Everyone clinked glasses in agreement. Aunt Rebecca, who oversaw human resources, smiled proudly. "The Ohio expansion has been phenomenal. 3 more locations opening this quarter alone." Then Uncle Mike, co-owner of Golden Fork, stood to address the entire room. "Family, thank you all for being here. Golden Fork isn't just a business, it's a legacy. Built by Johnsons, run by Johnsons, owned by Johnsons." The dining room erupted in cheers and whistles. But as the applause faded, Uncle Mike's eyes found mine. Of course, not everyone in the family follows the entrepreneurial path. Some prefer simpler careers. Suddenly, all eyes turned to me. I wore my standard reunion attire. A plain black dress from Target and Payless flats. My role as a library assistant for the Chicago Public Library system hardly dazzled anyone in the Golden Fork empire. Dad pounced. "Take my daughter Emily here. 28 years old, and she's never shown the slightest interest in business. Perfectly content to stamp books and check returns for the rest of her life." Cousin Sarah, who managed the company's finances, chuckled. "Not everyone can handle the pressures of real business, Uncle Tom. It takes a rare kind of grit to build something that matters." Dad nodded solemnly. "Exactly. Emily's always been more of a follower than a leader. Some people are just built for service roles." I spooned another bite of soufflé, letting their words wash over me. This was nothing new. Every reunion for the past decade had followed the same script. Uncle Mike carried on. "The restaurant industry demands vision, strategic thinking, risk analysis, financial planning. You've got to understand market forces, customer psychology, operational efficiency." Derek jumped in, eager to add, "And let's not forget navigating complex investor relations. Golden Fork wouldn't exist without our funding structure." I nearly choked on my dessert. Dad leaned back, emboldened. "That's what I've been trying to teach Emily for years. Business isn't for everyone. It takes ambition, the right mindset." Aunt Rebecca gave me a pitying smile. "And some people are better suited to supportive roles. That's fine too. Libraries have their place." The condescension was thick enough to slice with a knife. Cousin Kevin, head of purchasing, lifted his glass once more. "To those in the family bold enough to take risks and build wealth." Another round of applause followed, full of self-congratulation. Finally, Dad looked straight at me. "Emily, you really ought to think about your future. Library work is fine for now, but there's no real growth, no wealth. Without initiative, you'll never get anywhere in business." The table fell silent, waiting for me to admit my shortcomings, maybe even beg for their advice. I set my fork down and smiled. "You're right, Dad. I should probably leave success to my cousins." They all seemed pleased with this. Heads nodded. Kevin even patted my shoulder. "That's good self-awareness, Emily. Not everyone is cut out for entrepreneurship." I excused myself and walked through the dining room, past tables full of relatives celebrating their empire. The Golden Fork staff moved swiftly between tables, pouring coffee and clearing plates. None of them knew I'd been studying these operations closely for 7 years. Every menu tweak, every expansion, every staffing choice. Because while my family viewed me as a small-town librarian incapable of grasping business, the truth was far different. Since 2016, I had been Golden Fork's majority investor. Through Meridian Capital Partners, I controlled 78% of Golden Fork Enterprises. My initial $50 million investment, an inheritance from my grandmother hidden from my father, had grown into $200 million as the chain expanded. Every bold move they toasted tonight had required the approval of my representatives on the board. Every milestone had been bankrolled by me. I stepped into the restroom and called my fund manager. Patricia, it's Emily. I want to start liquidation of the Golden Fork position. Her voice was careful. Emily, that's a massive stake. Are you sure about the timing? Q3 numbers are very strong. I'm sure. Pull everything. Full liquidation within 30 days. A pause. That will activate the majority shareholder dissolution clause. The board will need immediate notification. Are you ready for that level of exposure? I pictured Dad's smug voice telling a room full of relatives why I'd never succeed in business. I'm ready. Send the notifications. I need to make it clear. This choice will ultimately dismantle the company. Golden Fork's operating funds are completely dependent on your investment structure. If that stream stops, they'll be bankrupt within 60 days. I know what this means. It feels like you're making this decision based on emotion. Maybe we should arrange a meeting to talk it through. Patricia, I've been tracking Golden Fork's financials for the past 2 years. Their growth pace is unsustainable. They're opening new branches faster than they can train capable managers. Customer satisfaction is dropping in every region. They're burning through money as if capital were endless. And until today it was. Everything I've said is accurate. While my family praised their so-called business genius, they were making worse and worse choices. Expanding too quickly, ignoring quality control, hiring managers who had no grasp of Golden Fork standards. If you're sure, Patricia said, I'll start the liquidation process. The board will be notified within 2 hours. Perfect. And Patricia, make certain the paperwork shows clearly that this decision comes from Thames River Holdings. I want the board to see exactly who's been bankrolling them. Thames River Holdings, T for Tom, R for Rebecca, named after my parents. A little private joke I'd kept for 7 years. I went back to the dining room where dessert plates were nearly cleared and coffee was being poured. My family was still buzzing about Golden Fork's promising future. The Nashville expansion is going to be huge, Derek said. We've already picked 12 prime sites for the next year and a half. Uncle Mike's head bobbed eagerly. The Southeast is wide open for fine dining chains. Golden Fork can dominate that market. I took a sip of coffee, watching them map out the empire they believed they were building. Funded with money that would vanish in less than 48 hours. My phone buzzed. A text from Patricia. Board notification sent. Expect responses within 4 to 6 hours. The reunion wrapped up around 10 p.m. with the usual family photo in front of Golden Fork's glowing logo. 300 relatives stood in rows, grinning proudly at the restaurant they believed represented their shared success. I stood in the back row, shoulder to shoulder with cousins managing different parts of a business they thought they controlled. The next morning, I was shelving returns in the library's fiction section when my phone rang. Uncle Mike. I let it roll to voicemail. Then Derek called. Then Aunt Rebecca. By noon, I had 11 missed calls and 14 text messages. Uncle Mike's voicemail. Emily, something strange has happened. Our main investor just pulled out of Golden Fork. I don't know what's going on, but we need an emergency family meeting. Derek's text. Did you hear? Golden Fork's in trouble. Some group called Thames River Holdings liquidated their entire stake. We're scrambling to figure out who they are. Aunt Rebecca's voicemail. Emily, I know you don't handle the business side, but our funding just collapsed. Call me back, please. I erased the messages and kept working. The children's reading program was scheduled in an hour, and I still had to set up activity stations. At 3 p.m., while reading Green Eggs and Ham to a circle of preschoolers, my phone vibrated with a text from Dad. Family meeting tonight. 7 p.m. at Mike's. Golden Fork emergency. Everyone must be there. I typed back, I'm working late tonight. Library inventory. His reply came instantly. This is more important than books, Emily. The family business is collapsing. I'm not part of the family business, remember? You told me to leave success to my cousins. No response. They held the emergency meeting without me, but throughout the week relatives kept updating me, shocked that I wasn't panicking over Golden Fork's troubles. Wednesday morning, Mom called. "Emily, your father is falling apart. Apparently, this Thames River Holdings company owned most of Golden Fork and just dumped everything. No warning. No negotiation. They have 60 days to find new capital or shut down every location." "That sounds complicated," I said. "Uncle Mike will figure something out. He's a smart businessman." "But where do they find $200 million in 2 months? And why would an investor just walk away from a profitable company?" I considered my words carefully. Maybe they had reasons we can't see. Thursday, Derek called. "Emily, I know you're not in the business, but do you know anyone who might invest in Golden Fork? We're contacting everyone." "I don't exactly run in investment circles, Derek. I'm just a librarian, remember?" "Right. But maybe through the library, patrons, donors, someone connected." I nearly laughed. "I'll keep my ears open." Friday afternoon, Uncle Mike himself phoned. "Emily, I have to ask something that sounds crazy. Thames River Holdings, TR. Your parents' initials. Tom and Rebecca. Is there any chance? I mean, this sounds insane, but do you know anything about this company?" I stayed quiet for a long beat. "Uncle Mike, that does sound insane. Where would I possibly get $200 million to pour into restaurants?" I know. It's just the timing. The sell-off happened the morning after the reunion. Right after." His voice trailed. "Right after what?" "Right after your dad made those remarks about your career choices." "You think I destroyed the family business because Dad hurt my feelings?" "No, of course not. I told you it was crazy. I'm just desperate." 2 weeks later, Golden Fork Enterprises filed for bankruptcy protection. Without Thames River Holdings to prop them up, they couldn't keep 23 locations running. The closures started with the newest branches, the ones that hadn't built loyal customers yet. The family was crushed. Uncle Mike laid off over 400 workers. Derek, Sarah, and Kevin all lost their management jobs. Aunt Rebecca had to cash out her retirement savings to cover personal bills. Dad called me 3 times during this collapse, each call more frantic than the last. "Emily, I don't get it. How did this happen? We had a winning business model. We were making money. We had growth plans." "Maybe the investor had other matters to deal with," I suggested. "But really, who abandons a thriving restaurant chain? That's not logical business behavior." "I wouldn't know, Dad. I don't understand how business really works," I admitted. Don't forget, the final blow came 6 weeks after the reunion. The Chicago Tribune published the story of Golden Fork's bankruptcy. Local restaurant group collapses after key investor pulls out. The article included interviews with several of our relatives, all of whom said they couldn't make sense of Thames River Holdings' decision. Uncle Mike told the reporter, "We never understood why they shut everything down. The business was profitable, expanding. It seemed like a completely random choice." And Derek added, "Thames River Holdings never spoke to us directly. Everything came through lawyers and fund managers. We never even knew who they actually were, or why they backed out." I came across that article during my lunch break, sitting in the library staff room with a sandwich and a cup of coffee. That night, Dad called me one last time. "Emily, I need to ask you something, and I want the truth." "Okay. Of course." "At the reunion, when I talked about your career, when I said you'd never make it in business, did that upset you?" I paused, thinking through how to answer. "Dad, you've been saying things like that for as long as I can remember. If I got upset every single time you dismissed me, I'd never stop being upset. But this time was different. This time, I said it in front of the whole family." "Yes, you did." "And the next day, our investor disappeared." "Coincidences happen, Dad." There was a long silence. "Emily, Thames River Holdings. TR, Tom and Rebecca's initials. I noticed that too. Is there something you're hiding from me?" I glanced around my modest apartment. The stacks of library books on the coffee table, the IKEA furniture, the space I rented for $1,200 a month, while $47 million sat quietly spread across my investment accounts. "Dad, you've spent a decade telling people I don't understand business, that I'm not ambitious enough, that I should leave entrepreneurship to my cousins. Why on earth would you think I could secretly own a restaurant chain? Because, his voice faltered, because I'm starting to wonder if I've been wrong about you all along. For the first time in my life, my father admitted he might have misjudged me. What makes you think that? I asked carefully. Because anyone who has the resources to take down a $200 million company overnight must be very, very intelligent, very patient, and very, very strategic. I stayed quiet. Emily, are you Thames River Holdings? I set down my coffee, walked to the window, and looked out at the Chicago skyline. In the distance, I could see the office building Golden Forks had vacated just last week. Dad, if I were Thames River Holdings, that would mean I secretly bankrolled the family business for 7 years while you insisted I wasn't capable of understanding entrepreneurship. It would mean I sat through endless family gatherings listening to you mock my career, while I was the one signing the checks. It would mean I have access to wealth and financial expertise you've always sworn I wasn't smart enough to handle. And it would mean you've been dead wrong about me my entire adult life. There was another heavy silence. Finally, Dad spoke. Emily, are you Thames River Holdings? Dad, what do you think? Another pause. Then, I think I owe you the biggest apology of my life. Yes, you do. And I think I've been a fool. Yes, you have. And I think you just taught me the most expensive lesson I've ever learned. I smiled, still staring at the city lights. Good business lessons always cost something, Dad. The worthwhile ones anyway. 3 months later, the family was still reeling from Golden Forks' downfall. Most of my cousins had found new jobs, though none with the kind of authority they once held. Uncle Mike was doing consulting work for other restaurant chains, trying to rebuild his reputation. Dad and I began having monthly dinners together, just the two of us. We never directly mentioned Thames River Holdings, but our entire relationship shifted. He asked about my library work with genuine curiosity. He wanted my opinions on business trends and financial markets. For the first time, he treated me like someone whose insight mattered. One night over dinner, he said, Emily, I've been thinking a lot about Golden Fork, about whether the family could have done something different, something to keep the investor on board. I thought for a moment. Most investors want to feel valued. They want to know their role is respected, not taken for granted. Dad nodded slowly. Good investors are rare. Smart capital doesn't just disappear without reason. Usually, no? So if a family had an investor supporting them for years, they should probably treat that investor very well. Probably, I said softly, even if that investor didn't seem impressive at first glance. Especially then. We ate quietly for a while. Then Dad spoke again. Emily, I don't know if you'll ever tell me the full truth about Golden Fork. Maybe someday. But I want you to know, truth or not, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of your work at the library. I'm proud of your intelligence. I'm proud of how you think strategically. I smiled. Thank you, Dad. And if you ever step into business again, I hope you'll let me be involved. Maybe as a junior partner, someone who listens more than he talks. I considered that. Was our relationship ready for that level of partnership? I'll keep that in mind, I told him. 6 months later, I made my first open investment under my own name. A struggling neighborhood bookstore fighting rising rent costs. Emily Johnson, investor and strategic advisor. Mrs. Chin, the owner, looked surprised when I offered to help. Are you sure you understand the retail book business? It's quite complicated. I smiled. I'm a fast learner. Under her leadership, and with my support, the shop not only survived, but grew into a thriving bookstore with a cafe and an event space. Mrs. Chen often told customers her turnaround was thanks to finding the right investor at the right time. Someone who understood the business, and who treated me with respect, she'd say. That's the key to any successful partnership. And sometimes, when Dad stopped by the store, I'd catch him smiling quietly as he listened to her talk about her philosophy. He never said a word, but I could see he was connecting the dots between my way of investing and the lesson he'd learned the hard way through Golden Fork. Because the best business lessons are the ones that teach you to recognize wisdom and talent, no matter where they come from.